Assalamualaikum everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce our group members. Our group consists of Muhammad Azim bin Kamaruddin, Nur Arishahani binti Rukman, Nur Husna Balkis binti Jaafar, Wan Nur Ayuni binti Wan Muhammad Nur Izzuddin, Siti Nur Husna binti Muhammad, Nur Salsabila binti Mansur, Wan Nurul Kamilah binti Wan Ismail, Aisyah Alia binti Rizal, Nurul Izzah binti Muhammad Iqbal, and myself, Nur Husna Afiqah binti Hamizul. Today, we will present our statistics project, which focuses on the analysis of an insurance dataset using IBM SPSS. Statistical data analysis is the process of collecting, organizing, summarizing, and interpreting data to support decision making. The dataset used in this study contains 1338 observations and includes variables such as age, BMI, number of children, insurance charges, gender, smoker status, and region. The main objective of this study is to identify patterns and relationships among these variables, especially factors that may influence insurance charges. To achieve this objective, several statistical techniques were applied, including descriptive statistics, graphical analysis, independent sample t-test, and ANOVA.
Now, I will explain the dataset and variables used in our study. The dataset that we use is an insurance dataset. It contains information from 1,338 insured individuals. The dataset includes personal information, health-related information, and insurance charge. However, we did not use all 1,338 observations. Instead, we selected as a sample of 498 observations. Using the simple random sampling method in IBM SPSS, random sampling means that every individual in the dataset has an equal chance of being selected. This method helps to reduce bias and makes the sample more representative of the population. Next, I will explain the variable used in this dataset. There are 7 variables in total, and they can be divided into 2 types, which are numerical variables and categorical variables. First, the numerical variables. The first variable is age, which refers to the age of the insured individual in years. The second variable is BMI, or body mass index. BMI is used to measure person health status based on their height and weight. The third variable is children, which represent the number of children covered under the insurance plan. The fourth variable is charge, which refers to the annual insurance cost paid by each individual. Now, let's look at the categorical variables. The first categorical variable is gender, which classifies individuals as male or female. The second variable is smoker status, which indicates whether an individual is a smoker or a non-smoker. The last variable is position, which show the area where the insured individual live. These variables are important because they help us understand the characteristics of the insured individuals. They also allow us to analyze whether factors such as age, BMI, smoking status, and leisure have an effect on insurance charge. By studying this variable, we can identify patterns and relationships in the data, which can support decision making in the insurance industry. That's all for the dataset and variable section.
Now I will explain the sample method 1 and 2. First, we identify the last 2 digits of each group member matrix number. The values obtained were 16, 22, 68, 25, 5, 55, 2, 61, and 50. For this value, we determine the smallest and the largest numbers. The smallest value was 2, while the largest value was 61. These 2 values were then used in the next step to calculate the sample size and selection range. Next, we calculated the sample size and selection range based on the formulas provided. For the sample size, we subtracted the smallest value for 500. Therefore, 500 minus 2 equals 498. This means our final sample size was 498 observations. For the selection range, we added the largest value to 500. Therefore, 500 plus 61 equals 561. This means the 561 observation from the dataset were considered for the sampling process.
Okay, next I will explain the step 3, which is data selection in SPSS. First, the complete dataset was entered into IBM SPSS Statistic software. Then, the select case function was used to retain only the eligible data. After that, simple random sampling was performed using SPSS to randomly select the required sample size. Finally, the selected sample was saved as a new dataset for further analysis. Step 4, which is justification of sampling method. The sampling method used in this study was simple random sampling. This method was chosen because every individual in the population has an equal chance of being selected. As a result, it helped to reduce sampling bias and improve the reliability of the findings. In addition, simple random sampling makes the sample more representative of the population, which increase the validity and generalizability of the study result.
I will be presenting section 3 of our report, focusing on the numeral descriptive measures for two primary variables, age and BMI. As shown on the slide, based on our SPSS output, a total sample size of 498 observations was utilized for this analysis. First, let's look at the age profile of our respondents. The data shows that the mean age of the sample is 39.49 years old. The youngest respondent in our dataset is 18 years old, while the oldest is 64 years old. The standard deviation for age is 14.55. This indicates a moderate variation in age, which means our sample represents a well-distributed adult population. Moving on to the second variable, BMI, the respondents recorded an average BMI of 30.69. The value ranged from a minimum of 15.96 to a maximum of 49.06. Our SPSS output shows a standard deviation of 5.91 for BMI. This relatively low standard deviation implies that most of the respondents' BMI values cluster quite close to the calculated mean of 30.69. To conclude my part, analyzing the age and BMI provides us with a clear overview of the physical and demographic background of our respondents before we look at how these factors relate to insurance costs.
Next, I will explain the numerical descriptive measures for the variables children and insurance charge. Based on the SPSS output, a total of 498 observations were used in this analysis. For the number of children, the mean is 1.03 children with a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 5 children. The standard deviation is 1.19, indicating that the number of children among respondents is relatively concentrated around the average. For insurance charge, the mean annual charge is 13,475 ringgit and 53 cents. The charge range from 1,137 ringgit and 47 cents to 63,770 ringgit and 43 cents. The standard deviation is 12,276 ringgit and 22 cents, which shows a large variation in insurance costs among respondents. Overall, insurance charges have a much wider spread compared to the number of children, suggesting that insurance costs differ significantly across individuals.
Now I would like to present the graphical representation of our dataset using histogram and a pie chart. First, let's look at the histogram of insurance charge. From the graph, we can see that distribution is positively skewed or right skewed. This means that most respondents have lower insurance charge, while only a small number of respondents have very high charge. The data is not evenly distributed because there are few extreme values that take a long tail on the right side of the graph. Next, we have the pie chart showing the smoking status of the respondent. The chart indicates that the majority of respondents are non-smokers, while smokers make up a smaller proportion of the sample. This shows that our dataset mainly consists of individuals who do not smoke. In conclusion, the graphical representation helps us understand the characteristics of the data more clearly. The histogram shows that insurance charges are rescued, while the pie chart reveals that most respondents are non-smokers. Thank you, and I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
Next, I will present the inferential statistic analysis using the independent sample t-test. The objective or purpose of this test was to determine whether there is a significant difference in insurance charge between smokers and non-smokers. Next, for the hypothesis, the null hypothesis states there is no significant difference in insurance charge between smokers and non-smokers. Meanwhile, the alternative hypothesis states that there is a significant difference between the two groups. Based on the descriptive statistics shown in the table, smokers record a mean insurance charge of 32,126.80, while non-smokers record a much lower mean of 8,552.36. This suggests that smokers tend to pay considerably higher insurance charge. Looking at the t-test result, the Lebanese test was significant with p less than 0.001, indicating that equivariance could not be assumed. Therefore, the result from the equivariance not assumed row were used. In conclusion, reject null hypothesis because there is a statistically significant difference in insurance charge between smokers and non-smokers. Specifically, smokers pay a higher insurance charge compared to non-smokers.
So for this section, I will present the analysis of variance or ANOVA that conducted on insurance charges across different regions. So the purpose of ANOVA is to determine whether there are significant difference in the mean insurance charges among three or more groups. In this study, the groups being compared are the different regions. For the null hypothesis test, there is no significant difference in the mean insurance charges among the regions. And for the alternative hypothesis, states that the mean insurance charge for at least one region is different from the others. Based on the ANOVA analysis, the F value obtained is 1.208, while the significant value, also known as the p-value, is 0.306. To make a decision, we compare the p-value with the significant level of 0.05. Since the p-value of 0.306 is greater than 0.05, the null hypothesis is not rejected. There are few components of the ANOVA table. The first one is the sum of squares is measure of the variation in insurance charges, and the second one is degrees of freedom that represent the number of independent values that is in the tabulation. So the third one is the mean square is calculated by dividing the sum of squares by the corresponding degrees of freedom. And the next one is the F statistics compares the variation between groups to the variation within groups. And the last one is the significance value helps to determine whether the observed difference in group means are statistically significant.
Hi everyone, so today I will continue to the last part of this presentation, or specifically conclusion. Based on the analysis of 498 respondents, the average age of insured individuals is 39.49. The average BMI is 30.69 and the average annual insurance charge is Rm 30,475.53. The results also show that insurance charge vary widely among individuals, and most respondents are non-smokers. The ANOVA test found no significant difference in insurance charge across different regions. However, the independent samples t-test found significant difference between smokers and non-smokers, indicating that smoking status has a strong influence on the insurance cost. In conclusion, statistical analysis is very useful for understanding customers' characteristics and support better decision making in business. That sentence concludes our presentation. Thank you.